It appears that history is repeating once again for Bitcoin, and with the advent of yesterday's price action, there are now two pivots on price action that essentially will determine Bitcoin's future for the month of December and likely into January as well, essentially letting us know how crazy this can get. As always, this will come with invalidations to be aware of too, because that always needs to be done. But before we get into this, I want to once again let people know that the Blofin link, the Blofin reduction link, if you are an active trader, is available to you in the link in the description below. It is no longer 10%. It is now 15%. Again, for all the questions that I've been getting about this cashback, I can assure you, because I've spoken with my representative there like 4 times now, I've like quadruple checked that yes, indeed, it is 15%. And again, anyone who's ever used this link will receive that same 15% cash back into their account for any sort of trades that you make. So if you're an active trader, but keeps a few more bucks in your pocket. And of course, if you're not, or if you're just super new, or if you're new in general, or just not into it, then don't do it, because obviously trading is highly risky. And in this market right now, you don't need to really be taking risks like that. You can literally just hold things and probably come out on top over the next few months. Anyways, yes. So going into it right here for Bitcoin, I want to first speak about the exact pivots on price action, then we'll get into some more fun stuff. But it's very, very simple here with yesterday's rejection, essentially, of the monthly open, actually, which is 97,431. Again, the month did open at exactly where it opened at, a little bit lower than there at about 97,200. If Bitcoin can pop back above and close above there on any higher term time frame, even a 12-hour probably does it at this point, very, very likely you're going to see Bitcoin initiate its major run above $100,000. You're probably not going to see it stop at 100,000. To be honest, it's very likely to bulldoze its way. It's very likely to bullzooka its way through with massive green dildos. So, expect a big explosive move. I mean, probably to 107, as we've gone over in the past. But is that going to be it for the month or for this segment? Well, as we'll go over a little bit later, perhaps not. Of course, this comes with an invalidation, though. It always needs to be. It's the same one as before. However, anywhere below last week's low, especially on a closing basis for the weekly time frame, is a big problem, and very likely does indicate that Bitcoin will come back down and consolidate in the very low $80,000 territory. I think that that's less likely, but of course there needs to be some sort of, again, objectively defined metric for invalidation of any sort of, of really any idea. Otherwise, how can you fucking test it? That's something that a lot of people leave out. Anyways, going into it right here, looking at some of our short-term time frame oscillators, or I wouldn't say short-term, but 12-hour oscillators, we do see several drives of bearish divergence coming off of this last rejective high that we saw from yesterday. So I do still think that Bitcoin does have a potential to be coming down, into the low 90s. We'll speak about, areas of interest for that in a moment here, but I want to first reiterate my sort of general ideas on this cycle, in that it's the 2017 playbook all over again. And I think it's really fucking obvious right now. How is it obvious? How can you confirm this for yourself? Bitcoin obviously took the reins of this market back in early November and absolutely crushed altcoins on their Bitcoin pairing. However, ever since Bitcoin did top out here on the 22nd of November is our current all-time high, or Bitcoin's current all-time high, we've seen altcoins massively gain versus Bitcoin, and likely Bitcoin dominance even topping for this cycle as well. So, that is the objective metric that I'm looking for to essentially confirm that the 2017 playbook is real, which is Bitcoin moves, alts get crushed versus their Bitcoin pairings. Obviously, they go up a little bit versus their US dollar pairings, and then Bitcoin stalls, and then everything else catches up. So if you're looking for, the rotational narrative, that's likely it. Maybe even Solana leads Bitcoin in some cases. I mean, it did kind of early this cycle, but I guess not really recently, obviously. And now people are saying like XRP is leading. No, it's not. It's getting rotated now, and it's having a really good rotation. Yes, it very likely does go on for more after a big, after a nice correction. But right here, again, we are seeing Bitcoin having more signals of a continued correction here, and can very easily come back down, like I said, to 91, 92,000 bucks. Just don't want to see it below last week's low, especially on a closing basis. That would be very, very concerning. I also want to bring up this as well. This price action right here is eerily similar to something from a prior cycle too. Keep this one in mind. Again, Bitcoin having a big explosive move to the upside, coming down, and then putting in a consolidation into the end of the year. So timing wise, this actually works out as well, because if we go back here to the year, oh, that rhymes, so it's good. If we go back here to the year 2020, very, very similar. Heading into November slash December, we saw the same sort of corrective move on Bitcoin as it got ready to absolutely explode onto massively new all-time highs. And this is kind of what I think will happen, from this breakout. Again, I don't think that 100,000 bucks is going to be any sort of resistance. You might see short-term stops along the way. Obviously, it's not going to be a straight line up, but if you go to the higher term timeframes, it will generally be up, most likely. But anyways, back onto the focus right here. This is the piece of price action that I'm speaking about. Again, first move up, boom, comes back down, sets in a higher low. I mean, after a massive breakout over here, and then does the same thing after after a little bit of a short-term correction. This one going on and lasting for, I would say, about 22, about 3 weeks essentially, from that first major high. So, going into our current segment right here, I do think that we're probably on a similar schedule to that as well. For reference, we are 11 days into this one. So if you were to take that out to about 21, 22 days, basically 3 weeks, that put us into about the second week of, or the beginning of the second week, a little bit before the beginning of the second week of, wait, no, it would be the end of the second week is what I'm trying to say, of December. So, another 10 days or so, 10, 11 days. And very likely, during that time, can Bitcoin come down and play out a correction like this, somewhere down around the 21 exponential moving average? Definitely possible here. As we went over in yesterday's video, the average drawdowns that we see for Bitcoin December from the open to the low, especially in positive gaining Decembers, has been, relatively small. It has been about 6.5% for just not just positive gaining Decembers, but when the macro trend is up, and then of course when it's halving or election, that number goes down even more. In fact, one time it was essentially 0%. So putting those numbers into practice here again from the monthly open, we've already seen, or no, we have not seen 4% down, which would actually be the average. Again, it's a fucking n equals 3, so it's not much of having an election years. That actually put Bitcoin down around about 93,300, 93,400, be essentially a test of this yellow 21 exponential average. Would also be a higher low as well. I think it's definitely possible, definitely within the cards. And if things go a little bit more, 6.5% perhaps is perhaps what we should expect on average. And that would put Bitcoin where essentially back around last week's low, very, very close to last week's low. Just don't want to see closures below that. That's where, I would start to say, hey, this is fucking bad, man. This is bad. No green dildos, only red dildos now. No, of course not. But a much more deep correction would very likely be initiated to the low 80s. But anyways, in the meantime, again, the last 12-hour high here at 97,430, any sort of a closure above there on a 12-hour time frame, this thing wants up. Yes, so we spoke about that. Just a reminder here as well, or do I want to speak about this? Yeah, let's actually speak about this really quickly. Also, just a quick reminder about December monthly returns. The average return for winning Decembers, meaning that they closed positively from open to closure, was 31.5%, with the median actually being a little bit higher than that at 35%. Again, from now that we do have the monthly open, well, what essentially would that look like? That would, 30% on top of price action puts Bitcoin at 125. So, can very easily find its way there, on this move. That very likely occurs in the next month or two. On top of that, if we go for the median, I mean, it's even higher, which is kind of crazy. And on the loss side, that actually does equate to about 80,000 bucks. So, hey, if it does happen, that's where I would be looking towards. But I am still biased towards upside resolutions here, especially with September of this year having been green. December has been green every time that's happened, except for once, which is 5 out of 6 times, actually. In fact, they're right here, 2023, 2026. 2026, 2016, 2015, 2013, 2012, 2011, with only 2013 being a negatively closing December month after a positive September. And by the way, during that year, Bitcoin still did make a new all-time high. Moi moi, what do you want? Okay, bye. All right, finally, just Elsa gets the fuck out of here for real. Anyways, It's like, can you not see I'm busy talking about magic money on the internet? Perhaps not. Anyways, yes, so moving on from there, let's get into also stochastic momentum. We can see that the daily, actually after, after having a nice turn to the upside over this, I think it was, over the weekend, does look like it will have a chance to cross the downside here. The pivot, however, is 96,900. So that's actually very important for a couple of reasons. One, if Bitcoin closed below, still that correction down to low 90s, probably more likely than not. Again, let's just call it 92, give or take about $1,000 from that number. And if Bitcoin does close above this number today, you're probably going to see that 12-hour pivot fulfilled simultaneously that we spoke about earlier right here. So those probably come one and the same. We'd see daily momentum flip back onto the upside. And I guess this rally would happen a lot sooner than, it would happen more like now rather than perhaps at the end of next week. Again, these are more timing questions. But yeah, definitely possible right there. On top of that, looking at the HPDR, just a quick reminder, the median is still at 107. So very likely do see a bit of a short-term reaction there at least. And then come back to it after that. But if Bitcoin starts to really reclaim above 107 on the median, whoops, I'm just like throwing my water bottles around here. It's probably gonna, things can get fucking crazy over the next few months. By the way, speaking of crazy, I recorded the video now of my thoughts and analysis of why I think that this cycle probably ends sooner than most people think. But of course, again, I can be massively wrong about this. People seem to get really fucking pissed off in the comments whenever I mention this. Look, I'm okay with being wrong. It's fine. It's going to happen. But yeah, that'll be released on Thursday. Anyways, moving now into some price statistics. Just another thing that does suggest short-term correction more likely than continuation from here as of right now. We do see that Tuesday has actually been a little bit more weighted in favor of negative closures versus positive closures since 2024 began. It's only outdone actually by Wednesday, which is the day that follows, of course. And it does have also the worst negative return at a little over 2.5%. So putting that in terms of price action to the downside, that actually would put Bitcoin at about 93,500. If Bitcoin were to play out the upside of this, because again, 54% strike rate for a negative closure is not like, it's not conclusive, obviously. The average return for the upside for Tuesdays would be about 97,700, which again would fulfill this pivot over here. So it's possible, but I would say that downside in the short term is a little more probable, which if you're a shitcoin connoisseur is probably a good thing for you, because that just means that your shitcoins get to, very likely rally a little bit more. I see plenty on the board that are just absolutely fucking flying as Bitcoin enters into this consolidation. But here's what I would say. A grave warning to the shitcoin connoisseurs of the world. Red dildos are coming your way if and when Bitcoin does break out. No, not red dildos versus US dollar. Obviously, it's still going to move up versus US dollar, but versus their Bitcoin parents, they will very likely lose versus that. But I do think that the Bitcoin dominance trend is now set, and it is set to the downside, as we do have at least a monthly swing top. I think is I think is pretty obvious. Again, I think if you're waiting for this chart right here, you're still late to the party. Like, memes have been fucking flying up during this whole time. There's been plenty of strong alts that have been flying up this whole time. If you waited right now, to get into alts, I still think you're kind of catching like the tail end of this cycle. There's gains to be had for sure, but yeah. Anyways, that's just my thoughts. And a funny Elsa story. Should I even say this? One time Elsa was, I have this really fucking sharp knife at home that I bought. It's like a Japanese knife, it's one of those special ones. And I think it's like super cool because I envision samurais using it. And, and it's really fucking sharp. Okay. And so she was, I don't know, cutting some fucking tomatoes or some bullshit. And she just grazes her thumb. And whenever you graze your thumb, even if it's like a rather shallow cut, it's still going to bleed a lot, and she starts bleeding profusely, and she starts freaking out because she realized what's going on. She's like, oh my god, and then she starts crying, obviously, because that's what girls do when they're faced with any sort of existential crisis. And not all of them, of course. And then I go, okay, I didn't know what was going on. So I come to the room. I'm like, what's up? Like, what's going on? She's like, it's not stopping bleeding. It's not stopping bleeding. Am I going to die? Am I going to die? Like, completely serious. She lived to tell the story. And that's where we'll end this video. As always, I'd like to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and have a massive green dildo for your Tuesday. Goodbye.